It's the second hour of the Elias Macco Show. This is a big day at the National Assembly. Quebec MNAs back at it. They're back at work. And can you think of a more consequential time for you, for all of us as Quebecers during the pandemic and with all of the issues that are on the table? It's our pleasure to have Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois on the program, co-spokesperson for Quebec Solidaire. Gabriel, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure.
So first things first, are you happy with how how the return to work at the National Assembly is going, the measures in place? Can you tell our listeners about how it's working on the first day back in session?
Well, it's going to be a little bit different from what people are used to watch on the news. So we're going to have only 37 MNAs physically at the same time inside the Salon Bleu, so the main room of the National Assembly in Quebec. 37 instead of the 125, so it's a little bit less, but still, I think it's a good news that politics and democracy will be in action in the next weeks in Quebec. We've had pretty intense debates in the last weeks. The best example I can give is the whole debate about the exemption for homeless people of the curfew. That was a heated and legitimate debate inside Quebec society. And I think it's a good news that all parties will now be able to participate in such debates.
Of course, it was the courts that forced the government's hand there when it comes to the curfew being imposed on homeless people. Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois, I want to talk to you about Quebec's economic relaunch. I know we're also going to talk about air purifiers in a second and schools in Quebec. But this is big crunch time for the government, right? 2021, if we get out of this pandemic, and you know, let's be positive, we will get out of this pandemic, we got to be ready for an economic relaunch. You're making the case here that it shouldn't just be the CAQ government. It should be all Quebecers involved in this discussion. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think we have to. I think it's not an overstatement to say that the crisis that we've lived through in the last year is a life-changing crisis for all of us, and it should be also a society-changing crisis. I mean, we've realized that our economy is weak on issues like medical equipment, vaccine, the fact that we are completely dependent on, multinational corporations to get our vaccines. We've realized also that a lot of Quebecers don't have an adequate access to internet. Those are the type of things that were revealed by the crisis. So I think the objective of the economic relaunch should not be to get back to normal, but to get back to a better situation than we had before the crisis. And in order to do that, we need a debate of society. We need really to have a collective discussion on what type of economy do we really want to relaunch after that crisis. And I don't think the Coalition Avenir Québec has the monopoly of answers to that very big question.
We're with Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, Quebec Solidaire co-spokesperson. But Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois, it's pretty clear that the CAQ government has talked a lot about autonomy, right? Oh, we want to be, a sort of nationalism when it comes to production, right? So is it fair to say that you've got at least some sort of connection there that when it comes to making Quebec more autonomous on production? Is there something that you can work with the CAQ on?
Well, I think Mr. Legault at least has put the finger on a real problem. The bad thing is that I don't think they are having the best solutions. And I'm going to give you only one example. Since the first day of that crisis, Quebec has been struggling to get enough protection equipment, for our frontline workers. From the first day of that pandemic, we've been scared about our capacity to get vaccines from corporations that are producing those vaccines outside of Quebec and sometimes outside of North America. So that's our level of dependency towards the outside market is troubling for me because it concerns life and death needs that the Quebec society has. So, and at Quebec Solidaire, we've been advocating for years now. I mean, for 15 years, we've been advocating for something called Pharma Québec, which is a public society that would be responsible to make Quebec the more autonomous possible in terms of vaccines, in terms of medication, and in terms of protection equipment. Those are the type of debates that we need to have in the next months in Quebec.
Before I let you go, we need to talk about air purifiers in schools. Yes. And as you know, it's so interesting. On the English side, we got to keep our school boards for the moment. They've got the power. Our big school boards have put in air purifiers in classrooms that need it. On the French, and we've seen it, by the way, in private schools as well. Private schools putting in air purifiers. On the French side, they've got the Centre de Service Scolaire. It's all controlled by the government, and there are no air purifiers. I know you're pushing for them, but will the province listen? Will Jean-François Roberge listen to you?
It's pretty revealing, and you have described the situation in much better terms than I could. It's very revealing. The reform of school board that was pushed by Mr. Roberge was supposed to give more autonomy to schools to make everyday decisions regarding students. What we are seeing right now is the exact opposite. It's because the Anglophone schools have kept their school boards that they're able to do the right thing for the students, which is to install correctly air purifiers in classrooms that are poorly ventilated. And because of the centralization that Mr. Roberge did in the Francophone schools, Francophone children right now in their classroom today are less protected than children in Anglophone schools or in private schools. So that's unbelievable. Mr. Roberge has succeeded to do something unbelievable. He just invented a new type of inequality inside the Quebec school system.
Can I ask you one last question here before we have to wrap up? Do you feel that the CAQ government is more stubborn to listening than previous majority governments? Listen, they're a majority government. They get to make decisions, right? I certainly get that. But do you feel they're more stubborn, more unwilling to listen than other majority governments you've dealt with?
What distinguishes that government from the previous government is that they really have the deep conviction that they know everything, that they have all the solutions, and that everyone that is criticizing them or proposing alternative solutions have bad intentions. And that's an attitude that really goes across the Conseil des Ministres. Everyone in that government, almost everyone, has that attitude. And the last example is the judiciary humiliation that suffered Mr. Legault when he stubbornly refused to make an exception for the curfew for homeless people. Everyone was telling him that it was completely absurd to apply a curfew or a stay-at-home order for someone who doesn't have a home. It was a basic logic. We were only asking for a decency approach in that issue. And the fact that the government just was completely convinced of having done the right thing, it took the courts to give them a lesson of compassion. And that's something that is really revealing of the overall attitude of that government.
Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois is the co-spokesperson for Quebec Solidaire. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope to talk to you at various points during this session at the National Assembly.
It will be a pleasure.